Okay guys, time for another cool dealer visit, and this dates back to Expona, a Chicago area land dealer that I've visited twice now. Super impressed, and especially with some of the brands they carry, I think don't get the recognition they deserve, and that's what this video is going to showcase. Stay tuned. Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can tell, I'm not in my normal backdrop. I'm at the Redneck Riviera in Florida. I'm here for a family reunion, and actually we have so many people with in-laws. It takes these four-story built homes. We had to rent two of them, over 40 plus people. But I'm decided to multitask while I was here, give you a different backdrop, and release this video, or at least film this part of the video that I'm gonna release back to Expona on this dealership, Musical Artisans. Really cool dealership. Now I did feature some of their party last year, but this year I even filmed more of the presentations that they gave, because they carry some brands that, and that's one of the litmus tests for me. I look at some of the brands that dealers carry, because that tells me a lot even before talking to them. And they carry CH Precision, which I think is an under the radar brand. Now those in the know CH Precision, but they may not know the pedigree of the people before CH Precision was involved, and I bring that up in the presentation and let the guy discuss a little bit about that. I think you'll be even more impressed, whether you know a lot about them or not, about the pedigree and history of CH Precision, and that they're truly doing some really high-end stuff. Also, I feature Argento, a company that came to my attention a little bit more recently, especially with their outlet, their $5,000 outlet, which I have, and I'm going to put it by Airbnb. Now it's the Lamborghini of outlets. It's ridiculous price for most people's budgets, and you know, any kind of improvement that you could gain if you want to do that equation, I totally understand. But for the best of the best, this is a really cool product, and I talked to the designer at this party and give you a little bit more insight behind that. Also, you're going to see Karma speakers, awesome speakers, Engstrom electronics, and just, again, the food there was the best pizza I ever had. I'll try in a caption to put the pizza name, because you got to have that pizza. It was so awesome. It was worth waiting several hours for them to deliver it. But it was a great party. Big thanks to Musical Artisans, and enjoy this video. Plenty more dealer visits to come. See you soon. This is the outlet that I featured at Rick Brown's house. Yes.
It starts with the outlet.
Yes.
And it goes to the power
Distributor, yes.
Which is made significantly different than any other power distributor out there, because the way we make it is that we have large sheets of silver.
Sheets of silver?
Yeah, that is cut into an intricate component that is then folded into making all of the outputs and an input.
Folded?
Yeah, there are only 3 pieces of silver in this device.
Okay.
And there are no breaks inside. Everything is a complete continuous piece of silver.
So it's just one big conductor?
Yeah, but not. There are 3 conductors. One for live, one for live, one for neutral, and one for...
But you're trying to just create a big conductor for all these outlets.
Yeah, but they are done in a way so that the distance to all the outputs from here is the same.
Really?
Yes.
How is that?
Yeah. But
how do you do that?
Do you know when you make an exhaust manifold for a car?
Okay.
You want the same back pressure for all the cylinders.
Okay.
Then you end up having things that looks like that.
Okay, so you do that to make it
equal. You do that to this.
Interesting. But what is the benefit there?
The benefit is that you, number one, have no breaks in the contact, in the path. It's just continuous silver. And number 2, you have star grounding.
Okay.
And none of these are prioritized over any of the others. I mean, everybody knows that have some experiences with that. Normally, some outputs are better than others. on these and many power.
Usually the nearest one is the better
usually
one.
the nearest one is the better, right?
But making all of that stuff doesn't add any resistance or anything?
No, because if there are no wires that have to be screwed into a connector.
Okay.
There are no platings.
Right,
nothing.
No connectors.
This is massive silver.
Massive silver in here.
Yeah. There are no plating. It's just pure massive.
So I hate to ask how much it costs, but
you have to talk to Ricardo about that because he's the distributor in the US. And then, if you then go to the power cords, you have. If all the power cords are the exact same length and the same type, then you have the same resistance to ground for all your components. Okay. Which makes the lowers the noise floor.
Less ground issues.
Yeah, and it's just it has to be experienced really.
So you found that the distance and the resistance to ground can make a difference.
It definitely makes a difference.
Interesting.
No doubt.
So you try to control that.
Yes.
And you would recommend everybody have the same length power conditioners? Power cords?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't really ever thought of that.
Yeah, I would. I mean, you could theoretically make a power cord that had different live and neutral conductors and remain with the same grounding scheme, and that would be okay because you would still have the same resistance to ground. But I just don't see the reason to do it.
Really? But even like an extra foot or meter.
I mean, it's become so little that will it make a difference? I would say no.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Yeah. A meter or something you probably don't have to worry about. But you don't want like one long run and very short run.
No.
Okay, I can buy that.
Yeah,
I can buy
it's all. I mean, it's like somebody asking me, will I be able to hear and meter more on my speaker?
Right.
I think probably not.
Yes,
but in some cases you might, if you have a low enough, or small enough
super high inductance cables, maybe so, but I understand. No, but what you're saying does make sense, as long as it's a material difference. Yes. Exactly. I totally get you. Well, I love that you're doing something so out there.
Yeah, it is.
I love it.
It is.
This is what this is what high-end's all about.
Yes.
I mean, yes, it's a ridiculous price, of course, but
I mean, doing something like this on a small scale. I mean, when we get in these, we have quarter of a square meter silver plates.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And with that quarter of a square meter, we get 1.5 of these.
Okay.
And
that's
then
crazy.
Everything basically. So. Yes.
That's insane.
Is it expensive? Yes.
No, I don't mind expensive as long as there's something behind it. But you're passing the test of you're putting thought behind it.
Yeah.
There is a reason for it.
Yeah.
And yes, it's still going to be out of the price point of most people.
Yeah.
But it's still badass and there's a purpose behind it. That's what I wanted to find out talking to you.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with every anecdotal report I've gotten of that outlet.
Yeah.
And Chris Hesse's going to send me one.
Chris Hesse loves them.
Yes.
He really does.
He's sending me one, and I'm going to put it in my Airbnb. I need to probably get one of these too. But in any case, love it. Love what you're doing. Love the passion. Love attention to detail. So thank you for taking the time to explain it.
Thank you very much for coming here.
So I started building these tangential pivoted tone arms 20 years ago.
Tangential pivoted.
The main goal of this design is to combine the advantage of a linear tracker with a pivoted tone arm. So we have no tracking error. And at the same time we have very low friction because I'm still using a pivoted design. The trick is that this tone arm has not a fixed offset angle, but while tracking along the record, the offset angle would change like a parallelogram.
Yeah, you can tell from this color difference here.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That means this is a tangential pivoted tone arm, which until then was basically not possible because all design was either linear or pivoted, and this one combines the two advantages. Then later on we started building turntables. The goal of this turntable is to be rigid and compact. So in my point of view, the more compact the design is, the more rigid it can be. And as you can imagine, there is a modulation in the groove, so there will be energy transferred to the needle and then to the tone arm. So if all this in between the needle and here is very rigid, that is an advantage. Otherwise, if you have some vibration here, that will go directly into the signal, so you have a distortion of the signal.
Right.
That's why, I mean, from an optical point of view, it looks more elegant, but from a technical point of view, this can be more rigid than if I would start building in heights.
Interesting. You only do 12-inch?
Yeah, since this tone arm has no tracking error anyway, so that is like a 1500 inch tone arm, so it makes no sense to build longer tone arms.
Interesting.
Then our turntables, they run on battery, so when playing music they are completely disconnected.
Really?
So this one runs for around 16 hours without any connection to the
Wow.
Then I took over EMT cartridges around 8 years ago. That is a very old broadcast cartridge manufacturer from Germany, and we have started to get a little bit more into hi-fi because broadcast and analog is a little bit fading out, I would say. So this cartridge is an average model, a medium model with a sapphire cantilever and a micro-inch stylus.
I love it.
The advantage of this tangential tracker is that the sound stage would stay very stable. So most people try to listen on distortions, but these distortions that are created by tracking error are more like moving the sound stage left and right. You don't have a really three-dimensional picture. So with these tangential trackers you get a really three-dimensional picture in the music. And the turntable makes a solid bass.
Do you have to have a special type of calibration different from normal turntables to do this?
Yes, because this will not work with a regular protractor.
Right.
So what we deliver with each tone arm is a protractor to set the distance and the angle of the
So
tone arm.
you provide your own calibration
That all
process.
comes with each tone arm.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah, let's listen to Dominic Miller.
This is pretty badass. And what's the price point on this whole thing?
This is around $30,000.
Is that right? Okay. Very impressive.
That's what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. And then you just.
That's impressive. Yeah. You're okay.
You want to stay here?
No. I don't even have your head, Jerry. No, you're fine. You're fine.
They do that a lot in France.
I really like these speakers. Like everything about them, I like.
They have like several
Totally dead silence from the turntable. Really nice. Mm-hmm. I gotta ask JR about this. Hello.
I figured I gotta come and give you a hard time about cowboy hat and stars.
Stars, right.
I'm a Texan. I've been in Texas 30 years.
Okay.
I mean, if you're a proper Texan, I want to see what you're carrying.
Oh, they wouldn't let me on the plane, but I got guns. Trust me, I got guns. Okay. I'm coming up in May. Okay. Well, send me a text. Send me an email with your information. Okay.
And 10 series.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some fun.
All right, yeah, send me an email. Give me all your, okay. Cool, yeah, that'd be cool.
That's great. Fellow Texans.
All right, good seeing you. All right. This sounds really good. Like, this doesn't sound like noisy vinyl to me, but this is very impressive. Very impressed with this. Good call, Jerry. This system is really good.
Yuri left Goldman, and in the early 2000s there was a company that you might be familiar with if you remember CDs back in the 2000s, and some of the best CD players in the world employed anagram technology. Anagram was upsampling filters and the like. That's who they were. And so while CH Precision happens to be a baby company at 15 years, which isn't that young in this part of the industry, they actually go back quite a bit farther. And that's when the transition moved a little bit. Thierry went on to go, if you will, on the university lecturing circuit, talking about something, I think it's called theoretical math. Now you should know, I used to be, when I started in college, I was an art major and I had to take calculus 1 quarter, and that I was out. Theoretical math is beyond my, I don't even know how to describe it, and that's who Thierry is. Florian then founded another company, which if you come and visit us in the show, we have a little product called Watson Audio, which is, if you will, baby CH. That was born out of an OEM company in its most recent configuration called Engineered. It was ABC PCB, and that was Florian's OEM company. So he's had his hands in a number of, maybe not here, but a number of other manufacturers in the industry, their DACs, preamps, and the like. CH was born out of that. The idea of not compromising design. The OEM business is wonderful business, but it also is filled with compromise. I know it'll be shocking to you, but many of the head guys in some of these small boutique manufacturers really think they know everything better. And so when they employ you to do engineering for them and you give them the best solution, they go, yes, but it's not like I always do it. And then you have to make compromise, right, to fulfill that client's needs. Now, it doesn't mean it's a bad design, but the idea of doing, you want a gain structure or you want a DSP technology, upsampling algorithms and the like, and you want the best. No, I don't want the best. I want it to be like I have, but just I need you to do it for me. So CH was brought to life out of that idea of no compromise. Everything starts as a blank sheet design. We're not playing phono here. We were supposed to. There's supposed to be a turntable here, so pretend. Because we have right here the P1, and those of you that know analog know that the P1 is the world's second best phono stage, certainly in our opinion, and Fremers, and Jacob Heilbrun's, and every other reviewer that bought their P1s. And did I mention we're a Swiss company? Nothing's free. We did not give any of those away. It's that good that it became, people reviewed them and they kept them. I say second best because a few years ago we introduced the P10, which is now one of those reference pieces. It's even above it. And I mentioned those two pieces just as an example. The P1 has 2 gain structures, has all of the equalization done at one step, kind of in the customary design, if you will. The P10, to get performance beyond this, we actually have 3 gain structures, and we split the equalization 3 times. A little bit in each one of the gain structures to get another 5 dB on the current side of signal to noise. It's absolutely astounding if you ever get a chance to hear a P10, but it's a completely different design. So it's not the same thing with bigger parts or in the like. That's I think the purpose of bringing this up. We're done. I was also tap dancing. We our gain structures on all of our preamps are actually, and when you talk to preamp designers, you'll hear the conversation about how hard it is to work with those really small voltage signals, and all you seem to hear is voltage. Voltage this, voltage that, little voltage here, it's hard to amplify. They forget there's another part to this whole equation. It's called current. Rather than doing a whole bunch of in-series resistors that help your signal to noise reduce when you're not at full volume. We actually do a parallel circuit in the current domain. Completely different, but it also allows us to do something that I just did with this unit. It's called an input calibration. Basically, every source component will have a minor amount of DC offset. That DC offset manifests itself as noise on the dielectric of the interconnect. It has to go somewhere. Unless you use a filtering cap, which you can do if the source is terrible, but going through a cap is a filter. We'd rather be direct coupled. What I just did was this input was just now testing with the interconnects in place, the circuit, and using current injectors, got rid of any DC offset and perfectly matched that input to that physical C1.2. You could have somebody else's equipment too. It's the same, you have the same situation. Every sample and every brand is going to be a little bit different. And so we just ran a circuit counting the output stage as part of the circuit and customize that input. You can always reset it or rerun it if you change sources. So we should fire up a piece of music. You can put West Side Story back up if you want to play the same thing. Play a little bit of that, but I have not done anything else to this preamp other than matched it perfectly to that C1.2, just to show you a little bit of the sophistication of what we call the baby preamp. There's a bigger preamp.
Once you match it, how long does before you'd have to recalibrate?
Don't turn it off, and it will continue to measure the circuit. That's a whole other thing.
Real time?
Over time in real time, it continues.
Yeah, because the
but it has to
DC
be
also
very,
could
very
change.
slow. Yes.
Yes.
And it's very, very slow, the circuitry, so it's actually going to constantly adjust it over time and make sure that it is calibrated. But if you turn stuff off, move cables in and out, you're a reviewer, you just rerun it. You saw how long it took.
No, it's not. Well, also, I know I don't have to say it for people in here probably, but I want to say it for people on video. When you mention anagram DAC chip, that pedigree is not to be overlooked. Because there was a time when I would go to shows, every single best DAC, whether it was Audio Aero, Audio Mephisto, there's only one common thread with all the best CD players at the time, and it was the anagram.
And it was C and H. It was those two guys.
Did you say we're not listening to the monos? We're listening to
We
the
are.
stereo?
No, I
We are
haven't
listening
done
to the
that.
monos.
We're just playing the preamp now. I'm not talking about this. I haven't talked about the amps.
Well, I thought you said
That's
something about
about
listening to
40
a stereo.
minutes. That's about 40 minutes. Left and right.
Trying to get the level match.
So guys, what you're seeing now is Jerry's head, and it's very... Yeah, it's okay,
I'm
Jerry.
actually charged for that, but I'm going to get out of here.
It's okay, Jerry. Let me come up here.
So that's just customizing that preamp. So part of the belief that we have is the system, there's more to a system than just taking your products out of the box and putting them on the shelf. I consider most audio equipment today plug and play. I don't care how expensive. I can point to a number of couple $100,000 power amps that are plug and play. And then you hook up that big preamp for $100,000 or something, you put it on the shelf and you hope it sounds better. It's not, it maybe does, hopefully it does, than the last one, but there's another bit of performance we believe available. And so within all of the components that we have some customization. It's like setting up, you think of it as setting up loudspeakers, right? You may find a spot that it's pretty good, but when you have somebody that really knows what they're doing, you can take that same system up another level by calibrating the speakers to the room. Well, in the electronic chain, we have the same thing. We have the DC offset that all of your sources will have. But also, on the amplifier side, there's a lot of things that we can do to optimize the system. One of them is input sensitivity, right? So if we lower the input sensitivity of the amp, we'll use more gain out of the preamp, That may sound better, it may not. It may need to be the other direction, based on the interconnects and the installation. These are all things, sort of, think about great mechanic. Most Ferraris aren't being tuned by their owners, but they expect it to be that F1 experience, right? So you take it to the shop to have it tuned up and kept in great shape. Well, the installation of components like this, we believe there's performance to be had by optimizing the signal path. So interconnects, they're all different lengths. Sensitivity speakers and that, moving the gain around is one. We have one small setting which is grossly misunderstood. We were told when we implemented this that it was not possible to do. Has anybody ever heard of global feedback? Anybody that knows, may he rest in peace, Charlie Hansen at Air, he convinced the entire industry that if you ever touch global feedback, you would explode in a poof of smoke and the devil would come down and take your soul away. It was the absolute worst thing you could possibly do. If you read, there's actually some more modern literature out there that talks about the balancing act of global feedback. All of our amplifiers have the ability to vary the percentage of global feedback to local feedback. If it's a solid state amp, it has feedback. Just so you know, it's either local or it's some part global. What happens when you increase the global feedback is that it increases the damping factor of the amp, so it tightens the amp. So let's say you've got a system, you've exhausted the setup of the speakers, and everything is perfect, but you got a little extra too much bass, right? It's just a little thick. Well, if you had a tone control, which would be some form of a phase shifting, timing, screwing up your great gear, right? We've all been told that tone controls are the worst thing that's ever existed. And that's because filters are going to play in time domain. By increasing global feedback, the amplifier increases its damping factor, so it tightens the amp. What's that mean? It's going to tighten that bass that might be a little loose, but it's not going to have any phase shifts. It's going to remain in its proper time and space. When you use a pair of mono amps, we can do this thing called, if you've got bi-wireable speakers, unfortunately this model isn't, but the DB, the ones we had in here, I don't know what they are, huge ones. They're way bigger. And we had a whole bunch of cables on them. And they were all big as my forearm. Like you had 4 on each speaker. When you split and vertically biamp, which is what I can do with each one of these, put them into a passive biamp mode, I can adjust the global feedback on one part and leave the top at 0. So I could tighten just the woofers. Proper time, everything is still there. So these are really sophisticated settings. I would never expect an end consumer to ever do this. This is something that I expect from Ricardo and his team as part of the setup, and that's our reliance on our dealer network. I'm just trying to give you a quick thumbnail picture of these are not plug and play. While most of the time they do get plugged and played, there is a level of performance beyond that a great dealer is able to squeak out of these systems, customizing it within your environment. You want to throw a piece of music on, and then we'll talk a little bit about our
What's the
upgrade
model of these
policy.
amps again?
This is our middle amp. So these are called the M1.1. I'm terrible with prices, and I'm terrible with wattage. I think we rate these at 250 watts. I have hit over 1,500 watts in these at shows. If I did that at home with my M1, I think I would die. I think my windows might explode or something. But I have seen peaks like that. Peter McGrath. Our M10s, I've seen over 2,000 watts, and they're rated at 350 or something. They are 180 kilos each, so they're not small.
Which is what in pounds?
Bringing a lot. That's more, it's 2.2. So 180. You don't want to move it. It's over 400 pounds. You'd be very happy we split them in 2 boxes.
I have a quick question for you. So, obviously there's a lot you can do with the gear and the system. Is there an order of operations in terms of optimization? That you
Set up your speakers.
Like a procedure?
Always set up speakers first.
Got it.
You can't ever get past setting up the transducers in the room.
So it's not going to fix
It's not a Band-Aid.
Got it.
It's how do we get that next level of performance. So at the same time, the first thing you do is set up the loudspeakers and get them as far as you can get them in analog. set up the cartridge before you start messing with PhonoStage. There is one thing, it might be the one piece that we do that makes our PhonoStage, well, while we think it's the best tube in the market, certainly makes them the easiest. We believe in current mode. So we might have a cartridge that somebody made for us that has quarter coils that have like very, 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 very low internal impedance that allows phono cartridges, moving coils, or great current devices. Remember I mentioned about the preamp? You're going to hear a theme here. The preamp, you can talk about voltage all day long, but there's a thing called current, and we can do things on that end. Well, with a phono cartridge, typically we're running in voltage mode, right? You read your cartridge at 0.2 millivolts or 0.5 millivolts, and then we're going to try to get about 2 volts out, and that's a heroic lift, right? That much gain, forget about equalization. And that's where great phono stages start coming in, but then you have a slight little problem that you have to damp. That's loading. So there's a thing, V equals I times R. Does everybody remember algebra at some point? You may not be able to do it anymore, but you remember that if you do something on the left side of the equal sign and you do something on the right side of the equal sign, right, as long as it's the same thing, it all works. With a phono cartridge with low internal impedance, you can run that into almost a dead short to get the voltage lift. Guess what you don't have? Runaway problems. You don't need to dampen. Now, for those of us that have done lots of analog, I have never found the correct loading option. I've always wanted one position between two, right? But even when I get it, I have 500 loading options. I still want a spot between those. So what do I want? 1,000 loading options? In current mode or transimpedance mode, that problem isn't there. So your signal to noise does this and you don't have to load. So we were able to experiment with a good friend of ours who makes phono cartridges. And we did a half coil, we did a quarter coil, and I think we went to an eighth, right? And that didn't sound as good as the quarter.
Double layer core.
Yeah, so anyway, it's absolutely astounding. And the other part is it works more efficiently. So when you look at a 0.2 millivolt and you go, it's got half the output of that 0.5, less than half. In current mode, it actually is more. So you know what our gain structure ends up set up at? Usually 15 dB. For those of you that set up phono stages, you know that you're usually running 70. Imagine signal to noise. It's way more efficient. And you don't have to do guesswork, so it's actually really easy. We have a gain wizard, a record you play, and it tells you how to set the gain. If you only have 5 options, just listen to them. It's faster than trying to get the record out of the jacket. Forget about loading because it's been fixed before it happened. The problem never happened. So there is a way to also use technology. And by the way, transimpedance we didn't invent. When I first started with CH, I didn't fully understand it. And one of the articles I found online that was my favorite was from the founder of Dynavector, who's no longer with us. But he wrote a long article about the advantages of transimpedance or current mode. So it's been around a long time. We think we're doing some other cool stuff with it, but at the end of the day, this is a technology that we don't understand, more people not using. So,
I'm going to play a little Hammond B3 organ.
oh my goodness.
Here we go.
Are you gonna play drums for us too?
No. I wish I could.
Well, you can in here.
Yeah, I can.